I'm Dr. Rosalind George. I am a board certified dermatologist and founded Wilmington Dermatology Center 18 years ago. And I specialize in medical dermatology as well as cosmetic dermatology, which is important because the skin is an organ in itself, and knowing about skin as well as sorry, I had to just clear off some of that stuff, as well as knowing about how our skin changes as we age is really important for giving people natural, beautiful, long-lasting results. So just a little bit about becoming a board certified dermatologist. I had to go to 4 years of college, and then I did 4 years of medical school, as well as 4 years of residency specifically in dermatology, which did include cosmetic training. I was also very fortunate to have mentors who were cosmetic dermatologists, so I was able to do a preceptorship in lasers as well as in injectables as I was learning. So I have a lot of experience, and that really does make a difference. You can learn a lot of things and you can get a lot of information from Instagram, but nothing still changes experience. I'm also a national trainer for injectables, and I've served on advisory boards for numerous product launches. I have done a lot of clinical research. We've conducted over 100 clinical trials here, which I'm really proud of. And those include trials not only in dermatology, pretty much every dermatology, eczema and psoriasis medicine that you see on your television. I was involved in those trials, as well as trials for neuromodulators like Botox in different areas, including the platysmal band, coming up masseter muscle, dermal fillers for under eye, which is your tear trough under eye, as well as chin, jawline, nasolabial folds, and temples. So pretty much all of the indications for dermal fillers I was involved in clinical trials on. And not only me, but my team is amazing. I have over 40 team members, including experienced physician assistants, nurses, estheticians, research, and my amazing support staff. And proud to have been voted best dermatologist in Wilmington for 10 years in a row. Decided it doesn't want to advance. All right, so what happens as we age? We see wrinkles, we see skin laxity. I mean, I'm sitting here on this and I'm going, boy, I just want to kind of hold my neck back. I wish there was a little bit of tape to kind of make it look a little bit tighter. Pigmentation, brown spots on our face, pore size. I'm at that age where I now have to use a magnifying mirror to tweeze my eyebrows, and I have to tell myself to stop looking at my pores in the magnifier because nobody sees them that way, but they definitely have changed. And just a general dullness, change in skin texture. And that can happen. We see it, we see dynamic lines. So when I move, I can see lines in my forehead, jowls, jawline. That's probably where I noticed the changes in aging first. We just seem to lose that definition. We start to get that little fatty jowl that sits below our jaw. And then we also lose volume in places. I start to kind of look almost skeletal. We see this hollowing out in the temples and in front of the ears. And then that kind of accentuates that loss of the jawline as well. And a lot of it happens because of the sun. I would say 80% of the aging that we see happens because of sun exposure. And then muscles movement as well as genetics play a role. And then we lose collagen and bone as well. I am borrowing some slides from some of the trainings that I do because I think that they're really important to see what happens. All of these different layers are changing as we age. So it's not one thing. People come in and see me all the time and they say, oh my gosh, it seems like this happened overnight. It does seem like it happened overnight, but women, we actually start aging in our 20s. So we start that collagen, that loss of collagen, and this changes in the fat pads and the bones and the ligaments that are holding our face together. All of that stuff starts to change. And that's why we see these different things happen. The excess, we see the jowling, lower face fat, where we used to have these nice fat pads in our cheek, they start to descend and we start to become less of an inverted triangle and more almost, I'm gonna not even say a regular triangle, almost more square jawed because we get that fullness down here. And then we also lose bone, elasticity, our skin thickness, we start to see thinning of the skin. And these are the fat pads. This is really important because this is one of the biggest things that we see. When we're young, we have all these beautiful fat pads that are situated all over our face, and they're all set together and make this beautiful, plump, lovely, round face. Well, as we age, that really starts to change, and those fat pads start to separate out, and some of them even start to disintegrate. And these are the subcutaneous ones that are superficial. And then we also have these deeper set fat pads as well. And all of this loss of fat actually contributes to aging. I haven't figured out why, genetically or evolutionarily, why I'm losing fat in my face, but I tend to get it back in my butt. It hasn't really made sense to me yet. But we do lose those fat compartments. So instead of them being nice and smooth and supple, they start to separate out. We start to hollow out, especially out here. And then some of those fat pads, particularly here, will descend, and that's why we get those fatty jowls. You'll start to see that sunken under eye area as well, because there's a fat pad there that also tends to kind of almost go up like your shades. And then bone changes too. I would say most of the bony changes we see as we age are in this mandible. This is your jawbone. It's called the mandible. And that's where we see a lot of changes. So that jawbone, our chin, we actually lose bone here, and that starts to retract, and we just don't have that structure. And that's something that really can be effectively addressed by filler, which is a nice option. So let's talk a little bit about wrinkles. So there's two types of wrinkles. There's wrinkles that are dynamic. Those are the ones we see when we move. So those are wrinkles caused by movement. And there are static lines. So static lines can be caused either by just sun damage over time. You'll see those on the lateral cheek, or by wrinkles that move all the time, they start to become static. So the most common areas we'll see those are upper facial lines. So those are the lines that are in between your eyes. We call those frown lines. Glabellar lines is the medical term, but frown lines are the number 11s. I have fresh Botox, so I'm not making them as well. And then forehead lines, those are the lines that when you elevate your eyebrows. Those are really important when we treat, because we don't want to knock those out completely. We want you to be able to elevate your eyebrow, or sometimes people will feel heavy. And then you have your crow's feet or your smile lines that are on the side. So those are your upper facial lines. Then you have these lines. These are your marionette lines. Those are the ones that pull down. It's a muscle that pulls down and what makes us look sad. I always sit in the car and try to smile as I drive, so I don't have that resting sad face, which people are like, why are you sad? Why are you unhappy? A lot of times it's because this muscle pulls down and we have that downturned mouth. And then you can also get smile lines. So, you can get these lines when you smile. And again, we talked about those lateral cheek lines. And the real answer in how we address wrinkles is a little bit of everything. One of the things that I like to do when I'm talking to patients is, we didn't get these lines and wrinkles overnight. I can't correct them in one treatment. I usually have to do this over a series of time. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so it's really important to kind of go into it knowing that we live in this world where everything is immediate, and it doesn't necessarily work that way. We can do a lot and we can get you an improvement pretty quickly, but we can't do everything at once. And combination things tend to yield the best results. What happens is that if I only do dermal fillers on somebody and that's all I did, they're actually going to start to look weird because I haven't addressed some of the other causes of aging. So it's really important that it's really a mixture of everything to give the best results. And I really do pride our practice on listening to people and coming up with individual plans. So let's talk a little bit about volume loss and augmentation. Fillers have had a little bit of a bad rap lately. I did a whole webinar on fillers themselves, so I won't spend a ton of time on that, just in case people have heard it before. But one of the first signs of aging that we see is that people lose volume. We talked about those fat pads and how they change. But what happened is that people went and they tried to just fill until all of that volume was corrected. And what happened is that people got overfilled and they started to look a little bit weird. Where fillers are the best is when we're doing small amounts of filler in very particular places to give a very subtle correction without overly filling someone. And really, I have filler in my face. People say all the time, oh my gosh, you have filler in your lips, you have filler there. Yes, I have multiple syringes of filler over my face in the last 20 years. Done right, it can be a very powerful tool, especially in combination with other things. But it really is done best when done in multiple sessions to achieve these natural results. The other great thing about fillers is when we first started doing them, we thought, oh, they maybe only last 6 to 12 months. What we know is as we keep up with these little bits, you really do get longevity out of them. So you need less and less product over time. So if you're going to an injector that just wants to keep putting 6 syringes of filler in your face every time they see them, I would suggest seeing somebody different. And these are the popular names of one. They're very similar. There's a couple different categories. So there's the hyaluronic acid gels. Those are things like Juvederm, Restylane, RHA is another popular product. Then you have these biostimulatory products. The brand names of those are called Radiesse and Sculptra. And what those do is they act like a scaffold to help regenerate collagen in a very natural way. And there are specific patients that I think are really good candidates for those. And then there are specific candidates I think that are really good for hyaluronic acid fillers. For instance, I would never use a biostimulatory product in somebody's lips. It's too unpredictable in those areas. So these are areas that I would choose a hyaluronic acid gel. So let's talk about lips. This is the first place a lot of times that women see aging. And some of the reason is because we don't have terminal hairs like men, and we talk a lot more than men do. So we're constantly moving our lips, and that creates wrinkles around the mouth. And natural results can be really achieved, but I do like to do it in stages. And these are some really great results. I mean, the lines around the mouth are the thing that are the bane of people's existence. They smokers lines, and people are like, I came up with smokers lines. I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life. They are not smokers lines. They just can happen genetically with sun exposure because we don't have hair like men do, and because we're animating in that area a lot. But you can see here are some really beautiful, subtle results. There are people look very, very natural. And usually we'll do some, and we can continue to add to get people their desired result. If somebody really wants an augmented lip, we can do it. We just have to we have to do it in stages so that people retain the natural shape and it looks natural. This is another area too, the jawline. We talked about how the jaw ages. This is a beautiful result as well of some jawline filler. You can see very subtle, but just that definition in the jaw. This area at the end is called the gonial angle. That's another area that we see aging. So just enhancing that a little bit can be very helpful. We can really do a little bit of filler everywhere. So jawline, temples. Temples is somewhere nobody ever comes in and says, oh, I need my temples done, but it's probably one of the more impactful areas that we treat because remember I told you you hollow out here. So if I can give a little bit of structure here, I'm also giving a little bit of structure to the cheek and to this lateral part of my face so that I can add a little bit of volume and get more volume up here. So I have that more youthful shape in my face instead of a regular triangle. The preauricular cheek, again, we're doing a lot more of subtle filler in this lateral part versus there was this time where everybody's filling this mid-face and everybody was walking around looking like Maleficent, and people were taught to just do this in a paint by numbers approach instead of really an artistic approach. And so people started to look really strange because they had all this filler in their cheeks and they had no filler out here. Now we're really thinking about what's happening with aging and using our eye to really create that youthful look without just overly filling by following a paint by numbers approach. Marionette lines, this is another area that people really struggle with, especially as we age, and it does give that negative emotion. That's one of the things I always want to tackle first. You know, if somebody has a smile line, that's not as bothersome as having a frown line or having a downturned mouth corner because it gives a negative emotion. Nasolabial folds, tear trough is another area that ages people. People are looking at your eyes all the time. It is also one of the more technically difficult areas to treat, and an area that we are extraordinarily conservative in. To make those results natural, it really is technically challenging. It can be very impactful, but it's really important to go to somebody who knows what they're doing if you're going to augment your tear troughs. It's one of the areas that I kind of joke, like if I'm going to have to correct something, that's an area that I'm constantly getting consulted on to have corrected, because it can really start to look very bad. One of the other things, you know, we talk a lot about faces. We see faces all the time, but we can't forget about the other areas of our body that ages us, and necks is the next place, right? I told you I was like sitting here looking at me in the camera and I want to hold my neck back. And for necks and chest, hands, these are all areas that age us. And so there are things that we can do to help that too. Early intervention is definitely better. So doing things early before we really need to get I would say until we used to say, okay, wait till you really see something. Maybe you were needing a facelift and we would try to augment to save you from having to have surgery. Now we know if we start these things earlier, we really can preserve how you look now. And some of those things that we can do neuromodulators, so that's something like Botox or Dysport, we can do that along the jawline and we can do that along the neck bands. Again, something nobody ever thinks about, but if you think about it, when you fold down, this muscle that sits above your jawline and goes into your clavicle here, it pulls down, it can pull down your face. So if we can relax that, we get unopposed action of the muscles that pull up here. So that gives a little bit of definition to the jaw. It's actually super easy, super quick, and that's a really great starting point. This is a great place to also think about some skin booster treatments. So that's a place where we'll use some biostimulatory fillers, something like a Radiesse, where we will mix it with some saline to thin it out. And then that acts as again, a scaffold here to help regenerate collagen in the neck. And it's a one where I have an injectable hyaluronic acid gel called SkinVive, which we inject in little kind of like little aliquots or little ditzels all along the neck. And that helps enhance the skin quality as well. And then energy-based devices for photo damaging and lifting and tightening can kind of be the icing on the cake. So let's talk a little bit about laxity and tightening. So full disclosure, nothing fixes true laxity and tightens the skin unless you have surgery. But there are things we can do to improve it, and not everybody is a candidate for surgery or wants to go under the knife. It is still surgery. You still have to go under anesthesia. You still have scars. It is not perfect, and there are still potential complications. So there are things that we can do that will help, that can help tighten and help with skin laxity, even if it's not perfect. Combination for me is still the best option. Some of the things that we do in the office that are great for skin laxity, Virtue. So Virtue we'll talk about is radiofrequency microneedling. Everest is one of my new favorite devices. It's one of those things where I got it and it's super comfortable and doesn't hurt. And I thought there's no way that this actually is going to work. And it really does a very decent job of lifting the skin. Ultherapy is an oldie but goodie. We've had that one for, since 2011, I believe. And that's an ultrasound device that's using ultrasound heat to get to the deeper levels of tissue to help tighten up that skin from the deeper levels. And then Ellacor is a completely novel treatment where we're not using heat at all. It is not regenerating collagen, it's actually physically removing skin. I'm going to just check the chat real quick just to see if there were any specific questions about this. Okay, nothing important yet. Okay, so talking about Virtue RF. So Virtue RF is combination microneedling with radiofrequency. What that means is it looks, for lack of a better way to describe it, it's like a little staple gun, and those little needles go underneath the skin, and we can choose the level. This is very important because if you go too deep, you could melt somebody's fat. So it's very important to know what you're doing with these devices. So the little needles go into the skin. We can pick the depth. We can go, okay, you have super thick skin. We need to go a little bit deeper. You are more somebody who has thinner skin. We're going to stay more superficial. And those little needles heat up. And at different levels, they're causing little injuries that then helps regenerate collagen. One of the nicest things about it is it's very customizable. Again, if you have super thick skin, you have deep wrinkles, we can go a little bit deeper, be a little bit more aggressive with the heat. If you have more superficial issues, you have just fine lines, you're wanting to get a little bit more, say you have a little bit of fat under your jaw, we can pick a different hand piece to go ahead and try to get that deeper fat. So it's very customizable. One of the biggest problems with the first microneedling radiofrequency devices that I have was pain. They were painful. It was hard to get through. We were numbing people with injectable numbing, and still, even with that, people were very uncomfortable. The way that, and you'll see this theme with a lot of the devices that I have, it's important that patients are comfortable, because if they're comfortable, we can actually get the treatment in, and that means you're going to see results. If somebody's jumping around and they can't get the energy in and people are uncomfortable, you're not going to be getting a full treatment. And so it's really important that we make you comfortable. What this specific device does to make you comfortable is that it doesn't deliver all the energy in one stack. So the energy goes in and it subpulses. So it's not like all of the energy has gone in. And that makes it way more comfortable for the patient. And the downtime is a lot less because the needles are underneath the skin. You don't see as much surface change. So the treatment, you may be pink for like 24 hours, but it's very comfortable and tolerable, and the downtime is very minimal. Usually done in a series. So most of these are best done in a series. Some of the treatments that we used to do, you would have a month of downtime. Nobody has time for that anymore. So that's why you'll see most of these things are better when done in a series. All right, and then Everest. So what's the difference between Everest, which is a radio frequency device? This one doesn't use needles. So the idea behind this one, again, old radio frequency devices that didn't use needles, all of the energy was just delivered in one fell swoop, which made it extraordinarily uncomfortable for patients and hard to get to the temperature that we needed to actually cause a change in the collagen. So with this, there's this continuous cooling, and the energy is gently delivered over a period of time versus giving one fell swoop of all of this energy. What that does is you still get the energy in, you still get the results, but this has no pain and no downtime. You could come in, you could have this treatment, you could go to dinner that night, and actually you look better because some of that heat actually contracts the tissue. So it's I had somebody getting ready for a wedding and what can I do? Oh my gosh, what's the last thing I can do? I was like, well, have an Everest the week before. You're going to look great for the wedding. So it's been a really nice treatment. This one's best done 2 treatments spaced about 4 to 6 weeks apart. And you can see, you can see that, that's a really nice result. That's actually one treatment. She didn't have her second treatment. This was after one treatment. And this was several months after that treatment. This is a 3-month photo. You can see, you kind of one of those pictures where you're like, wow, she looks better. And you don't know why they look better. They just look refreshed. Your friends will say, did you go on vacation? Why do you look so nice? So that's a really nice result with a treatment that has no downtime and no pain. And it's getting a lot of press just because I think people are looking for these devices that we can do before before we have to turn to the knife. This is great for really all ages too. A lot of devices, sometimes when we talk about collagen, most of the studies only go up to age 65. That does not mean at age 65 that you can never make collagen again and you're not going to see results. That's not how it works. We see results in all ages. This one in particular is really good for all ages. So if it's, hey, you see somebody early and you're just starting to see it and you don't want to do something aggressive, Everest is great for you. If you are older and you're like, I don't want to have a lot of downtime, I don't want to undergo the knife, Everest can work for you as well. So I really have been a big fan of this as well. All right, next slide. And then Ellacor. Ellacor is also a really interesting and novel device. This is not heat. I am not trying to regenerate collagen. I am physically removing small pieces of skin. So this is called microcoring. And what we do is we actually numb the skin. You can do necks and faces kind of up to the cheekbone here. And it uses tiny needles that are used to puncture the skin. Think about it like a little sewing machine, and it's actually physically removing little pieces of skin. We're removing roughly about 5% of the skin at a time. And then you can see a really decent result here for somebody who did not want to have surgery, but wanted something that can improve, especially in this. I'm just going to show with the mouse the jowl area right through here. All right, slide. Pigmentation. So pigmentation is, I think there was a study, and this was probably about 5 or 10 years ago, and it asked people to give people's ages and what they guessed their ages were. Pigmentation was the #1 thing that aged somebody. So if you come in and you have a ton of sun damage and a ton of brown spots, that is probably the first place I would recommend that you start. And sun exposure is the #1 cause. We are so lucky. We live in this beautiful area. We all get to go in and enjoy the water, and so many people play pickleball and golf, and we have this lovely lifestyle, but we are out in the sun a lot and we are damaged from the sun, and it is the #1 cause of our aging. And so what can we do to kind of do some clear the skin? There are a lot of options. #1 is a great skincare regimen. I used to not be a huge believer, oh, I'm going to do all these 6 steps and I should do a good skincare regimen. And then I got into my late 30s and 40s and I was like, oh, like my skin is not looking as good as it used to. And I really do need to follow a good skincare regimen. So skincare is really a good starting point. And honestly, if you're going to pay us to make your skin look better, you should protect your investment by, at the minimum, doing sunscreen every day, thinking about vitamin C to protect also from the sun and the environment, and as well as a retinoid to help keep that collagen synthesis up. So skincare for me is still a really important part of all of this. Chemical peels, great option. And there are a lot of different chemical peels. There are ones that you can have that you don't really have to peel. And then there are deep chemical peels where you might, I don't know if anybody ever watched Sex and the City, and there's a whole one where Samantha has a chemical peel and she can't go to her party and she looks like she's a burn victim. And we still do some of those chemical peels. Lasers and light treatment are super easy as well. And there's a lot of different options to get you to your endpoint. And again, a series is usually best. One of the biggest challenges we have is that we have to worry about sun exposure. And to get the best results, you really have to be out of the sun for a couple weeks before and after these treatments. Or again, you have a laser and you go out in the sun, you're basically wasting your money. Okay, so let's go through some of the options here for pigmentation. And a lot of these are used in conjunction for collagen stimulation too as well. So BBL is broadband light. It is a new take on IPL. So IPL is intense pulse light. It's not technically a laser. It's a light treatment and it covers all of the wavelengths of light. And what that does, it can treat red, it can treat brown, it can treat, it can help collagen stimulation. So BBL is a really nice treatment. Where BBL is different from IPL is, again, you'll hear this theme again. IPL was a bunch of energy and one little stamper, and people would stamp across and you'd look bruised and battered for about a week. The results were really good, but there were potentially a lot of complications. People could get little skip lesions. I see it all the time, like these little stamps on their chest or their face because they didn't get an even treatment. So with the BBL, you're getting that same intense light that's over that broad spectrum, but we're moving it to get all that energy in. So you're getting a much more even treatment. The Forever Young particle, the actual physician who kind of came up with these protocols is a Stanford dermatologist, and he has pictures of when he's 45 and when he's 65, and his skin at 65 looks just as good as it did at 45, and he had been doing BBLs on a yearly basis for those past 20 years. So it really can be a powerful maintenance tool to really preserve our skin as is. And you can see a really nice result in her, especially you can see that brown spot, just the tone texture, skin looks a lot brighter. Pico is another really great treatment. So Pico lasers, where Pico comes from is picosecond. So that means that the energy is delivered so quickly in a picosecond measurement that it's really using acoustic waves or sound waves instead of heat to destroy pigment. It has different ways to set it where we can use it with traditional laser settings as well. And it's a great treatment. It's one of the more affordable treatments if you have individual brown spots. And you can see even after one treatment, all those little brown spots are basically gone. Then laser resurfacing. So this is kind of one of those, everything is old is new again. So we were in a realm of time where people didn't want any downtime and they wanted to have very little pain. And what that meant was we were doing these smaller treatments to get an endpoint, but they needed maybe 4 to 6 treatments to get to that endpoint. How laser resurfacing works is we're using lasers to send tiny little holes of energy underneath the skin so that new skin pops up from the inside out. So think about it like aerating your grass. That's a good way to think about laser resurfacing. Laser resurfacing can be either an ablation, meaning we're actually killing some of the skin cells, or non-ablative. So we're damaging them, but we're not killing them off so that new skin can form. both of them are done in a fraction of the skin. And what that means is before we used to ablate the entire face. So we would do these treatments. We would treat 100% of your face and you would look like a burn victim for a month. Very difficult, uncomfortable, long healing problems. And depending on how aggressive you were, there were problems with scarring. So how we get around that is we're treating a fraction, or we'll see fractionated. So you'll hear fractionated CO2. These treatments we're treating a fraction. So we might only treat 20% of the skin. And what that does is it leaves some of the normal skin around so it heals much more quickly, and you don't have as many chances of complications. The best part about all of the lasers is that we can mix and match them. And it's a little bit of choose your own adventure. So depending on how much downtime you have, how quickly you want to see results, how many wrinkles you have, we can change that. We can change how we can determine what to treat people with based on how aggressive or how much damage you have or how much downtime you have. So I can do smaller treatments. The traditional one that we do smaller treatments on is Cool Peel. So Cool Peel, we're treating low density. It's still CO2. It's still a fractional ablative laser. You still get great results, but you have much less downtime, and it might take multiple treatments to get the same result. We can take something like our new Helix laser, where we have two wavelengths of laser. So we have the CO2, which is the ablative, and then we have the Sulta, or the other wavelength that is non-ablative. And we can hit those wavelengths at the same time. So what that does is I'm getting more energy. I'm getting them at the same time. I'm not increasing anybody's downtime, but I get a little bit more tightening with the skin with that. And I can get a little bit more heat in there so that we can see the results a little bit more quickly. You are going to have a little bit more downtime with something like that, but you're getting a little bit more tightening and collagen stimulation by using those two wavelengths at the same time. And then you can take a traditional CO2 and we can still do a more ablative treatment. That's definitely going to have a little bit more downtime. I had a treatment like that in October, and I was very swollen, and it took me a good week to heal completely. And I was still very hypersensitive, meaning I turned a little pinker than I normally do. I have a little bit of rosacea. I get pink very easily. So I turned a little bit pinker than I would normally. But you can see you can get some really nice results from some laser resurfacing. And this is a nice result as well. You can see not only her brown spots, but if you look closely at her crow's feet over here, you can see those are softened as well. So that's a really nice result from some laser resurfacing. Skin quality, like I said, that's like the holy grail. That's what we're looking for here. Now, she's somebody who we went back and we went and treated also the brown spots. She did have a laser resurfacing after this. This was just the skin quality booster. And this is a treatment called Skin Vive. And this is the one we're injecting into the top layer of skin in very small little aliquots, little ditzels all over the skin. It takes about a month to see the results. It's really good for all ages. It's not volumizing. So yes, it's a hyaluronic acid gel, but it's not a traditional filler. It has a completely different mechanism of action to work by enhancing the water held in the skin. And so you see this brightening, you see that improvement in the glow of your skin, as well as the fine lines and wrinkles without overly filling. And it's been a really nice treatment in my office, and I really have liked it, especially for patients that maybe have some fine lines around the mouth that I don't want to do a big filler so that they look like a duck, but it can really enhance some of the results that we see with lasers as well. And then let's talk a little bit about the body. So we still do fat loss and body contouring. Cool Sculpting is still an awesome treatment. It's completely different than it was when we first got it in 2010. It works by basically when you freeze fat freezes before your skin cells do. So you can selectively destroy those fat cells. And that permanently destroys them, and it can be effective. It is not a weight loss method. That's what your Ozempic and your Mounjaro are for, and good diet and exercise, good old diet and exercise. But it can really be great for contouring areas that you just can't get rid of. A little bit of, the fat that hangs over your jeans, or for me, the bra fat has been a really effective area that we treated. Abdominals, so there's lots of areas that you can treat. Muscle toning and contouring, there's something called Cool Tone. It's basically using electromagnetic stimulation to help muscle stimulation. Toning, so butts and stomachs, a great place to tone, but also functional treatment. I have to say, as we age, we lose balance. Our core isn't as strong. So keeping up with that actually can enhance your functional improvement as well. They did a study on people who had cool tone and they were able to hold a plank longer. They were able to perform better in exercise. So it really is one of those things we don't think about a lot, but can really be helpful in just maintaining our healthy activity levels as we age as well. You can also do some of the skin laxity and tightening devices on the body. Virtue has a special, that radio frequency microneedling one has a special handpiece for the body. Ellacor is now approved for the body. So I'm seeing some great results. We just did our first few patients, abdominal, just seeing them back and some really nice results from that. Everest also, if you didn't want any downtime or any pain, Everest can be used on the body. So we have a lot of options there. Laser hair removal, still such a huge procedure and such a nice one. I mean, who wants to go around worrying about shaving all the time? Hair removal is easy, and it works by targeting color. So it doesn't work on hair that's gray or blonde. It only works on dark hair. So if you have dark hair, basically the laser energy is getting taken up by that hair follicle, and that energy is destroying the hair follicle. So you can get some permanent hair destruction there. Tattoo removal, I think more and more people are getting tattoos that they may regret. The picosecond laser that we have is great for that. And then excessive sweat. I had always dealt with hyperhidrosis. I had never wanted to wear a white shirt because I would always get, big sweat stains under it. And Mirror Dry effectively destroys those sweat glands under your arms. The first question I always get, is that healthy? Is that safe? Yes, you only have about 3% of your sweat glands there, so you can get rid of them and effectively treat those. And here are some before and afters just of cool sculpting. You can see, again, not a weight loss. These are contouring. Back fat is one of my favorite areas that just really can make a big difference. I find, especially as I've aged, my fat sits a little bit differently. So having something that I can contour that's easy, effective, no downtime is a great option. And cool tone, you can see here, again, it's just kind of that muscle stem, giving that tightening, not tightening of the skin, but the muscle. So you see that muscle definition, the lifting of the buttocks. And again, for me, the biggest thing for cool tone, I think, that's understated for these devices is the functional improvement that you can get. And then let's talk about some of what we're thinking about as ages. The one question I always get about Botox or neuromodulators, and there's a lot of different Botox products out there. Botox is kind of like Kleenex. They're all Botox, but there's about 6 of them on the market now. And people will say, well, what are you going to look like in 20 years? You're going to look like this. I've been getting Botox for 20 years. It still works. It's one of the safest things that we do. It's consistent, and it's one of the best things that you can start preventatively so that you don't get wrinkles. And we can really treat in a lot of different areas and do a lot of great things with it, and look very natural and normal. So Botox, I started when I was 28 years old. Definitely protecting from the sun, starting your skincare regimen. It doesn't have to be complicated. Again, the things that work the best: a vitamin C, a sunscreen, and a retinoid. Those are the 3 main things. Doing things like small chemical peels. People are loving love one called the Bio Repeel that the estheticians in our practice offer. It just gives that skin a glow. And then you can do, wintertime where like it's peel season, get your peel done. And so you can do some more aggressive peels then. And then a laser hair removal, tattoo removal. People are getting those things done in their 20s and 30s too. And then you kind of go, okay, I'm getting into my 30s and 40s. What am I starting to think? These are things where you can think about doing those early interventions, something like Everest for lifting and tightening, very conservatively placed fillers for those just early signs of volume loss, thinking about things for doing, body cool tone, cool sculpting, mirror dry. And then after, and even in the 30s and 40s, I have plenty of people who are seeing sun damage that are doing laser treatments as well. And then as you get into the 50s, you're going to want to think about some more of those other things, with the more aggressive, maybe laser resurfacing treatments, thinking about something like Ellacor. Again, a lot of these things are better done early. It doesn't mean that if you haven't done them, they're not going to be effective, but hitting some of these things earlier are going to help get you the best results. Right? We talked about skincare. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but it really is an important part of this. It's an important part of the pre and post procedure. If you're going to have a laser procedure, to make sure you're using the right products to help that healing so that you don't have a complication. I talked about my non-negotiables. And then there are specialty products, peptide serums, growth factors, which are, exosome type like products as well, that can help that aging process. And then I always like to point out there's so much information out there, and you can change it. And if you look in your drawer, there's probably a drawer of thousands of dollars that you spent on whatever was on TikTok or Instagram or at the drugstore because you decided to try something new. It really is important to use products that are backed by science and not just an influencer. Those influencers have a new product the next week that they're like, now this is the best product, this is the best supplement. So just really looking at the people who are putting the science behind it. We're a SkinCeuticals flagship. One of the reasons I like SkinCeuticals products so much is that they're not picking an ingredient and looking at what happened in a petri dish. They're actually doing clinical trials where they're looking at patients who are using that specific product and following them for a period of time and looking how their skin improves, not only by pictures and report, but also taking biopsies of the skin and looking how the signaling pathways for aging are changing in the skin by using those products. So there really are companies that are putting money into the science of it and not just the shiny bottle or the Instagram influencer. So now let's talk a little bit about Star Event. So we developed Star Event to showcase everything that we do in the office, and also to reward our loyal clients and patients with the lowest pricing of the year. And then we do a big raffle. We call it the Star Event. I've been a big supporter of Make-A-Wish for at least 15 years. So we do a raffle where you can pay to go into the raffle, win a really nice skincare basket, and everything goes to Make-A-Wish of Eastern North Carolina. So people get confused and they think, oh, what do I need to do? What do I need to buy? What do I have to do Star Event? You do not have to choose what you want to have done. What you need to know is what your general budget is. And so during that week, you can place a deposit down, and that locks in the lowest price of the year. So this week, during March 9th through 13th, you can visit our website and enter the Star Event page. We also have a virtual open house where you can kind of review all of the different cosmetic treatments we have, and you'll see the reduced star pricing. And then you can prepay for any procedures that you want to have. You might not know. You might say, you know what, my budget for the year is $1,000, so I'm going to put that down. And then you can decide, I want to have a Botox treatment, I want to have filler, I want to put it towards a laser. What that gets you is that locks in the lowest price for that year. And you're able to use that until you're able to get that lowest price until your balance is gone. I believe next week or the next couple weeks, we are going to have the actual banner is going to be up on our website, so you can register, and that will just allow you to get updates to remind when it's happening, when everything's going to be open, so that you can see pricing and go through all of the different things that we offer in the office.